Hey everyone, welcome back for the second episode of the Some Say podcast. I'm Holly, I'm your host, and this week I have a conversation for you that I had with Eric Terzo several weeks ago in the foyer. Eric is a photographer, Eric is a filmmaker, and he came over and had a chat with me about how to make a guerrilla film, how to just do it, how to get it done on your own without much, money or connections or resources. And that short film called Exit Plan, he just found out was accepted into the New York Short Film Festival. So he's definitely doing something right. We also discussed a little bit about his photography and what he does, how he captures moments, and what that means, for him and for his work. And in general, we just have a nice conversation. I am excited for you guys to hear, what kind of things he's working on. And if you want to see some more, of course, you can always go to the show pages. Every guest I have will have a show page on the website. My website is at hollyameaton.wixsite.com/somesay. What else? Oh, also, there's a few little things I just want to make you aware of. There's something I've recently heard of called digital dirt. There's a little bit of that during our recording toward the end of the episode. About 27 minutes in, a little after 27 minutes in, for about 20 or so seconds. So be aware. It's not the best, but I also didn't want to cut it because the conversation was going nicely and I didn't want to, mess up the flow. You may need to turn down your headphones for that portion. And there's also, because we're coming to you straight from our foyer, a little bit of a siren in about 32 minutes. But that's it. Other than that, we're a little bit better as we go. Every episode sounds a little bit better than the last, I hope. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode. I'll be back to talk a little bit after the episode. And remember to check out our website once again at hollyameaton.wixsite.com/somesay. Okay, talk to you soon. All right, Eric Terzo, wonderful to have you here.
Thank you
for the podcast today. Let's get started. First of all, how are you?
I'm great.
Wonderful.
I guess as good as anybody can be right now.
Yeah, it's a strange time, to say the very least. So you're here, you're a photographer, you're here to talk about your work and your film, which I've seen a few times now, and I love.
Thank you.
Yes, and so let's get started.
Okay.
First of all, why this film? Why now?
Well, the film is about this guy who's pondering suicide.
Yes.
It's sort of the lead actor actually came up with this idea a couple of years ago, and it was more of gathering what I could, realizing what I could do.
Yes.
And having the resources. Let me start that again.
Yeah.
Knowing what my resources are, I thought I can do this.
Yes.
I'm like, I don't have a lot of money. I don't have but I have some equipment.
Yep.
And and
exactly like we're right here.
Yeah. But it wasn't something that I was like, I need to do this because of any particular reason.
Right.
It was just sort of an interesting story to me, and I was like, let's hash it out.
Okay.
And let's do it. And
okay.
So
how did you guys decide on the story? I mean, it's an interesting story. Do you want to give us a little bit about it first before we sort of get into that?
Sure. Exit Plan's about this older musician who's thinking about killing himself, and the one way he's thinking about killing himself is blowing himself on stage.
Yes.
His whole mantra at this point in his life is, I've done everything. I'm done. Life isn't doing it for me anymore. I just want to go out doing something I love.
Yes.
It's sort of like the line that Bukowski uses. Find something that you love and let it kill you.
Yes.
That's pretty much what he's going for there. And and it's a sort of a dark, sardonic take on it, and it's also basically just his thoughts on the ponderance of suicide.
Yes.
Playing over a scenario over and over in your head.
Yes.
Does this work? Does that work?
Well, as dark as the subject matter is, and as dark as it kind of was, I thought it was funny. Like, it was funny. They were just, like, going through different things. I'm not going to spoil anything, but, as they kind of went on this journey to do this, this final act and the problems that arose, I thought it was really funny and very just like dry and kind of like this great humor. Now, you said that the lead actor also came up with this, and you guys worked on it together? Yeah,
he approached me like 3 or 4 years ago with it.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, oh, okay. And I just did a sketch comedy called OCD Suicide Note.
Okay.
And I was kind of like, suicide, but, kept coming back to me. We kept talking about it, and, we wrote a script, and it was a lot, really wordy, too much explanation, and I was like, I can do a short film. I don't want to feature yet. Let me get my feet wet and do a short film. Let me boil it down. It was a lot. We didn't explain a lot.
Right.
To the audience.
Right.
We tried to leave a lot of it to their imagination. We gave them what I think is what they... just a little bit of an idea of what,
Absolutely.
And we let... I like art in films that leave things to your imagination.
Right.
That don't, it's not like...
Explain every little detail.
It's not like a mama bird, like, chewing up all of it and spitting it into your mouth.
Right.
But, it took like 13, oddly enough, for this little 7-minute, it took like 13 rewrites.
Sure.
And
I can see that.
Endless hours of editing and shooting. And it was bare bone. It was just me and my wife Lisa as like the crew. All the people in the movie were non-actors. They were all like musicians or friends or family members.
That's interesting, because I was watching the film with my husband, and he was like, I think they're actually musicians. Like, what? We were just trying to figure out who was what and where it was shot and all of that.
Yeah.
But that comes across, actually.
Most of the stuff was shot in Breezy Point. My friend had like a summer home there, and we did rehearsal scenes there.
Nice.
We converted his backyard into a bar. I wanted to do the scene in a bar.
Yes.
I have no connections. I have no money, and I'm like, we'll
make a bar.
We'll make a bar.
We'll make a bar.
And I was really proud. Lisa and I just we got to his backyard, and luckily it was shot at night, so
I believed it was a bar. Absolutely. I saw like Lisa in the back of the shot, and I was kind of like, okay, that looks like a bar. Right, I believe
it's sort of like a shitty bar.
Exactly.
You shoot the exterior of a bar.
That's right.
That's
all you gotta do. That's all that's done. The magic of filmmaking.
The magic of guerrilla style filmmaking.
Absolutely. No, I think that's great, and I think what you said about not over-explaining any of the plot really works, because the first thing that struck me about the film is that it's beautifully shot. Like, it's beautiful. So where did you said that you worked with this actor and you had these ideas. Now, I know that you're a photographer, so did you sort of build on your knowledge to shoot like, how exactly does that translate over into film?
I guess, what I did, I did the traditional, pre-production, where I just did like, I just did storyboards and stuff like that.
Right.
And I worked on the composition, and, apparently I made some mistakes. I showed the film to one of my friends who's like a film teacher, and she was like, you broke what they call the 180-degree rule. Okay. Which I had no idea, because I didn't go to film school. Right. I just sort of like doing whatever. Sure. I parrot it. Right. Whatever I enjoy, whatever my influences are, and just go there. But she was like, you're supposed to do this, everything's supposed to line up, and I'm like, it seems fine to me, but okay, cool. But that's what's awesome about doing this, taking that leap and doing my first short film, is that I learned a lot.
Yes. Yes. And that's the kind of thing. It's like you learn as you go. Same thing with this podcast. I was talking to my producer last night, and he was like, just do it. We'll figure it out. Mm-hmm. If it's, something that needs to be fixed, we'll figure out how to fix it. Just start to put it out there. Exactly. And that's exactly it, because you want to get these things out, but I'm definitely the type of person who wants to make sure everything is right and, cross all the T's, dot all the I's, and all that stuff. And he basically kind of brought me back to let's just do it.
Yeah.
So I love that. That's your attitude.
And even with just doing it,
yes,
you still want to cross all the I's and
yeah,
dot the T's.
exactly.
And you go through the pain of doing that,
right.
and there's still like shit that's
right.
not perfect. And
right.
I'm sorry if I can't.
No, it's fine.
But you're still. That's what's. I don't know. That's what I find that was the most rewarding thing. And it continues to be the most rewarding thing for everything I do artistically is you learn something and you apply it hopefully to the next thing you do.
The next thing, yes, absolutely, absolutely. How long did it take you to shoot the film?
It took a year, almost a year.
Oh wow!
Because we again, I work full time. Lisa works full time.
Absolutely.
All the folks we were all dealing with non-actors who all had full
right.
lives. So you had the scheduling and rescheduling and
right.
I can't make it. I thought I could make it. You
right.
know, and the stars had to align each time for all
right.
every single scene was an act of like.
It was
miracle.
A miracle.
It was like all right, this guy suffered enough. We'll let him have.
That's funny.
So.
That's funny.
Again, and it was just it was just like, hey, we had in your mind, you're like, it's gonna be this.
Right.
I'm gonna have these beautiful like push and pull shots, and like all I have is a tripod and a camera.
right.
I'm just gonna do what I can do and make it the best I can make it with what I know.
Absolutely. No, it really came across, and it came across as like a project of people who loved what they were doing and were doing it for the love of it, so that really came through. Now, as far as going forward, what's your next project that you're thinking, or do you feel like this was a good thing to experience and back to photography? Like, where are you at as far as your...
I got two... It's very odd you say that. I do want to go back to photography. I want to do a photo series. I started it before the film, and I want to continue it.
Wonderful.
It's called Flight of the Watchers. It's sort of like a commentary on surveillance. And, there's cameras everywhere.
Okay.
It's also sort of inspired by a high school dream journal. Back in high school, my English teacher made us write a dream journal to sort of like use our dreams to maybe come up with something creative. So I had this dream. I had this dream when I was in high school about these birds with cameras on their heads, and they were flying around, and like they would not leave me and my friends alone. We were trying to get away from them the whole time.
That's great.
And I wrote that down, and I came across my dream journal maybe like a couple of years ago, and I was like, ooh. And I had all these old cameras. I collect old cameras, and I was like, I'll shoot them. And I went out and I started shooting birds in the street, and I did some Photoshop work. Looks kind of like Hitchcocky, like cool. Twilight Zone type of thing. And I'm like, this is fun, but it's just birds with cameras on their heads. Now I want to like integrate it and make them like interact with the people, sort of like include the dream that I was having, like people reacting to these birds, watching them, and.
Nice, yeah.
Like make a whole blow out the world, expand it. So
yeah, that sounds really cool, and I'm shocked that you were able to get anything out of an old high school journal, because I also kept a lot of those, and I gotta be honest and say I don't know if they're gonna come back and do anything for me. So.
I don't know. I look at it and it's like maybe it's a little on the nose, but it's still that's
fantastic though. I love that you're able to sort of go back and mine material. Micah, my husband, also does that, but I really have a hard time sort of doing that. Like I kind of go back and see things as like, oh, that was an interesting thought I had several years ago. So what kind of made you pick out that old thought and to really run with it? Like what really got you going with it?
Well, I mean, like it was like, wow, connecting the dots here.
Yeah.
Total, it's just chance.
Mm-hmm.
I was cleaning out the closet. I saw this book. I read it, but I'm like, wow, this makes so much sense of what we're dealing with now. I have cameras everywhere on your phone, on your computer, on your TV.
Yeah.
There's screens and cameras everywhere. We're constantly watching each other. We're constantly being watched. I live in an apartment complex that have cameras everywhere.
Everywhere, sure.
And
for safety.
For safety. Quick, if I can digress.
Yes, please.
A couple of Christmases ago, I threw out a Christmas tree improperly, and they sent me a video still of me throwing out the tree, and they told me I had to pay $100 fine, and I was like,
wow.
And that's
You got caught.
I got caught.
You got caught. Well, it's interesting also hearing this from a photographer and from, you know, a filmmaker like you, because I feel like I dabbled in photography a little bit, you know, in high school. Well, not really, high school-ish, but really in college. And now with my iPhone, I mean, I take like thousands of photos a year. And I love it, and I consider it a hobby, and I consider it, you know, like a long-standing, beloved hobby. But, you know, so do probably most people.
Yeah, there's so many.
You know what I mean? Like, everybody has a phone in their pocket.
Yeah. And
So it's this interesting thing to sort of, how do you feel being a serious photographer, sort of now where photos and Instagram and people are everywhere and people are constantly putting their things out there, and not how do you feel, but how does that feel to you as an artist who really, you know, 20 or so years ago, you had to know what you were kind of doing.
Right.
And now you can publish your photos, you know, with a click of a button. Do you feel like that's sort of helped you as an artist, or put you somewhere else, or how do you feel about that huge change?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's helped me connect to other serious photographers and learn from them and get feedback. You know, the more the merrier, I guess.
Yeah,
you know,
good.
For me, I do a lot of street photography, and I'm always looking. I'm not looking for the moment where someone's looking at the camera. I'm looking for that piece of humanity that just happens in just that 1 second, and it's gone.
And it's gone.
You know, I want to capture that moment, and you know, and have somebody think about it or look at it and have a certain emotion that is different than what I am experiencing while I'm taking the picture, or maybe something similar. You know, but you know. It's everybody's watching each other. I just find it interesting that we're all voyeurs,
all watching each other,
and we're all just sitting and in judgment of each other constantly. I feel like, you know, we're hyper now with it too. I think we're all trying to reach out and learn something about ourselves and about our society.
Yes.
But you know, I think some of us are getting a little too into the self. You know, You know, like things like like Instagram. If somebody follows me and I look at their Instagram page and it's just pictures of themselves constantly, I will not pursue the digital relation. Yeah, I'd be
back away. No, I mean that's a really great point, because I feel like, you know, things like narcissism or what I'll call narcissism are kind of. Now we have an instant reward for these things. Now it's like, and now you have 1,000 likes, you know, and so keep doing it. And I don't know that that's really kind of been a thing before, where it's like an instant publishing thing and you get this gratification of strangers.
It's strange.
You know?
It is strange.
It's strange. And I, like I said, I just like to take photos and throw them up on, you know, on Instagram. And if I get like people I don't know liking my stuff, I'm like, oh, cool. Look at that. Hey, what's going on there? Yeah. So I'm always interested in what, you know, professionals kind of, you know, get from that, or how you sort of deal with that, because it's such a different world.
Yeah.
So,
no, I mean, for me, it's just, you know, I like I said, I try to reach out to other photographers. I try to
I love that.
Learn from them and get critique from them, and you know, there's so much great photography happening right now.
Yes.
You know, there is some people say it's all this technology is a detriment to creativity. I disagree.
That's great.
Wholeheartedly. I think it's forcing people to be better, and I think and you know, say what you will about digital photography, but you can do so much with it now. You can it's like CGI. Yes. You know, I'm not a big CGI fan, but you know, I appreciate it, and I think it helps you tell a story. You know? Yes.
Well, and that's kind of what I think it all comes back to, right? It's like we're all trying to tell, whether it's our story or someone else's story, or, you know, whatever's going on, everybody wants to express themselves. And I think now it's easier than it's ever been, which again is kind of like we're flipping perception, but we're kind of in this space where I can set up a microphone and my laptop and here's a podcast, you know? I mean, it's amazing. And, you know, I just feel like we're sort of in this new place of well, now you have no excuses. So here you go. Like, what are you going to do with it, you know?
We're giving it to you.
And so now what, you know? And I find it's a little bit, it can be overwhelming, but I find it fascinating and exciting, you know?
I mean, you know, there's going to be people that break on through to the other side.
Right.
To sound corny.
Right.
And then there's people that are just, you know, they're there just to stroke their own ego. You know,
Right.
I guess everybody, all artists, all creative people have an ego.
Of course.
But I think there's people that go out and try to do something of merit.
Right.
Try to bring something of themselves, you know, try to reach out and, I don't know, make a connection.
Yeah, make a connection. That's exactly it.
That's it. I think that if you boil art down to, if you take away strip it of all the different mediums,
Right.
it's just, art is just another form of communication. Connect,
Absolutely.
You know?
Do you see me? Do you get it? Do you not get it? Can we fight about it?
Right.
You know, what's the conversation that we're having? And how does that spur me to do more or to go somewhere else or, you know, whatever it might be, right?
Right.
Speaking of that, who would you say are your major influences, either in filmmaking or in photography or?
Film. I'm gonna go.
Your choice.
Film. Oh boy, we'll be here all night.
That's a huge question. I know.
I'm really getting into Cassavetes, John Cassavetes.
Okay.
I've been watching his earlier stuff and
Okay.
Hitchcock, of course. I love Scorsese.
Yes.
I'm gonna forget his name. There's so many different directors. The director who did The Last Picture Show.
Oh yes, all I think of when I hear that is Sybil Shepherd, she and I can't remember the director's name.
I can't remember.
Sybil Shepherd.
We're going with Sybil.
Wasn't she married to him or dated him or something like
no,
that?
but I'm gonna use the internet.
You can Google that.
I'm gonna Google. I'm gonna cheat. See, I'm not.
You can cheat.
I'm not an expert.
There's no rules.
We'll get back to it.
No problem. We'll come back to that.
But you know,
And what kind of things do you take? So let's kind of just go off a little bit. Like, what kind of things do you take when I say influences? And I've been asked that question, and I've been in situations where I couldn't even answer it, and it's it's like one of the more basic questions.
But it's also very hard.
But it's also very difficult because you can get inspiration from people because you love their work and you're trying to emulate it, you know, shot for shot or, you know, word for word. And then you can also have people who steer you in another direction, and you kind of look at their work and they're well respected and you don't want to go there. Right. So it's such a complicated question, I think, for artists, but it also, you know, I think it can be a lot of fun. But so now I'm going to kind of loop around again. And, you know, when I ask not just, you know, who are your influences, but where do you want to sort of take your work? You know, I love that you started and you talked about your dream journal, and you're kind of, you know, you're doing this film and you're working with other people. Like, where do you want to go in the next couple years that maybe you didn't think you would go to a few years ago?
I would say I would like to try a feature film. I have two other short films. Nice. Ideas that I'm working out right now, and I'm pretty confident I can get those done.
That's great.
But I'd like to do a feature film.
Okay.
And that scares me.
Yeah, it's scary.
You know, that's a big commitment.
Because, you know, I think I hate to come back to this, but I think what's scariest about it now in 2018, which is where we're at in this moment of the world,
Peter Bogdanovich.
There you go.
Sorry.
No, that's great. You had to. No, you had to.
It came into my...
That's it.
Sorry.
Excellent. But you can make the film.
Yeah.
Like, you can do it.
Definitely can.
It's not off the table. Like, you can get it done. So I think that's almost the scariest part about all of the innovations and all of the wonderful things that are coming up, and sort of, you know, you can go make that film. So what are you going to make it about?
Yeah. I did.
No commitment. You're not locked down to this idea whatsoever.
Well, I did have a feature film idea for a while.
All right.
And it's just a treatment, but it's everything I do seems to be on the nose. But I want to do
That's
a feature film about this poor couple who they work in the service industry. They do all these like posh, like government dinners. They're like servers.
Okay.
They're in love and they want to get married.
Okay.
And like one of these politicians' daughters getting married to a rich guy, and they plan to hijack the wedding and make it their own.
Wow, that's nice. I like it.
It was,
That's great.
taking Pelham 1, 2, 3
That's
inspired
great.
me on that.
That's great.
But
Very
I want to do something like that. It's sort of a
Yeah.
talk about classism and.
Absolutely. And I think, that's an interesting theme, because I feel as though things are at a point in this country where, we're sort of all over the place and there's a lot going on. But I think class is still one of those things where people don't really want to ever like dive into that.
Yeah.
And I think there's just a lot of like reasons behind it, and people don't want to talk about, I grew up without, or I grew up with. I feel like there's a lot of shame on both sides.
Right.
Like if you're too rich or if you're too poor, like nobody really wants to go there. So I think that's really an interesting subject that doesn't kind of get explored enough, in my opinion.
A lot of, being working class, and being around a lot of poor folks.
Yes.
Where a lot of people try to pretend that they're rich.
Right.
And knowing some rich folks
who pretend to
be
not
poor.
be.
Right.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And that's the thing. It's it really does go both ways. And it's this weird shame that we can't talk about the extremes. So I think that's great.
You can't never happy with what you have.
Right.
Just counting your blessings, all that. You know. So those are the things I'm constantly thinking about.
That's great.
I want to focus on this photo series. I want to try to. I'm drawing out sketches of the frames I want, and I want to start getting models using not models but people. We may have to collaborate on this down the road. But but there's that, and then another short film, and then. What I want to do is I want to try and work with more filmmakers and have an actual crew.
Yes.
Because the guerrilla style filmmaking is great.
Yes.
But you can't do everything by yourself.
You can't do everything by yourself.
That's a big lesson there. Was
you can't do everything by yourself.
I was just like, I need to get this done, so I'm just going to do it. But next one, I want a crew.
Make some connections, meet some people, get some, figure some things out. Well, I feel, and that's the funny thing about art too, and that's also the thing about making this podcast. I feel like I've thought about it for a long time, and I wanted to wait until I could get it all done and I could do it all myself. And sometimes that's what you need to do to get started, but then you have to sort of pedal back a little bit and say, all right, but who can help me, And I think that's huge.
Before you're talking about, crossing the
Yes.
T's, dotting the I's.
Yes.
In order to get that. You have to be able to collaborate. I think most art is a collaborative effort.
Absolutely.
And you need to be able to, do that.
Meet other people and play well with others.
Right.
It's a whole thing. I don't know. No, it is. It's important. It's important.
Yeah.
Well, this has been great. I mean, is there anything else that, you are thinking about as far as your art goes, or anything else you want to sort of touch upon? Because, and this is very early in this life of this podcast, but, my real aim here is to sort of figure out where artists are and where you guys want to go. Right. And not so much about how you got here, but is there anything you feel like you need to mention as far as how you got here?
Well, I would like to touch on something. In one of the first email you mentioned, you stated a question about art being how can you do art and a lot of people feel like art is a luxury, and how can you? And I disagree with that sentiment. I don't think art is a luxury at all. I think it's a necessity. I think we need it as a society. Yes. It's helped us grow and evolve.
And be people.
not just as a society, but for ourselves.
Absolutely.
It's important. It is important in times like this that we have art. any all kinds of art.
Yes.
You know.
Agreed.
Because without it, and not the only luxury I see art being, is the commodified version of it.
Oh, sure. $5 million for white canvas, or and that also does have. There's a validity there as well. But there is an extreme, where people are buying art just to own it and to show it and to use it as a status symbol.
Right.
And that's one extreme. And then you have people who that's how they, to live, you make art.
Right.
And I also feel that way. I feel as though there is a huge world out there. And I know a lot of people who are artists, obviously, and I also know a lot of people who are like, I'm not creative, I'm not this, but they're making a world, they're making a family, they're making a life, they're creating something where there was nothing, and to me, that's art. I mean, that's creation.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad you actually touched upon that, because that's kind of where I'm really trying to go with all of this. It's like, if there is no creation, if there is no, we're making something where there was once nothing, then what are we doing here?
I just think inherently we're creative.
Absolutely.
That's,
yeah.
From the very beginning.
Absolutely.
Without getting into the science of it, which I know nothing of.
Yeah, that's another podcast. That's not this podcast. That's another one. Sounds good. All right, and you remembered Peter Bogdanovich, right?
Yes.
Anything else or any other influences you want to touch upon before we go?
Vivian Maier.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of her?
I have not heard of her.
She was a found photographer.
Okay.
Some of the best street photography I've ever seen in my life.
Okay.
If you haven't heard of Vivian Maier, check her out.
I'm writing it down right now. Okay, and how was she found?
I forget the gentleman's name, but he was at some garage sale and he found a bunch of her rolls of film he hadn't developed.
You know what? I think I actually have heard of her, but I did not remember her name.
And he was like, "These are amazing."
That is fantastic.
And he researched her and he brought her to life.
Wow.
She was unknown. She
Yes.
was a nanny. She didn't do, but she was taking. Man, I get welled up when I look at her.
Wow.
She captures that humanity. That's good street photography. That humanity. That raw humanity.
Yes. Well, I mean, and it's great that you actually put it that way too, because I feel like even in playwriting, like that's what I'm always going for, and I'm going for the moment where you might not love the characters, but you're like, oh, that's my mother said that to me, my grandmother said that to me, my dad said that to me, my whoever, it's just, it's real.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got to watch, I think, sometimes, because people get a little too like, oh, it's too real, it's too much. But I think that's kind of
that's the point.
That's the point.
That's what I think. As much as I like those superhero movies, I think we need more movies about what humanity right now. We need more human interest stories.
Human interest stories, and also the understanding that, are we all really that different?
Right.
Or are we all kind of similar in certain ways? I know we are different, but I do feel like there's a base of humanity where, certain people recognize certain traits and certain things, and,
Yeah. I mean, I feel like back in the 60s and the 70s, we touched on that. The films that were being made at that time were real and gritty and dark. And then, along come the 80s, and we start to get away from that. We can start to enjoy
party time,
Bernie, Weekend at Bernie's, Lethal Weapon. There were still some great human interest stories happening then. But now we're living in a time where I look at the marquee and I'm like, Iron Man, Ant-Man. I'm like, I appreciate that those movies are being made because it puts a lot of people are employed because of it.
Absolutely.
But
we need to vary it up a little bit.
And not just for Oscar season,
That's true.
I mean, and saying that with television is sort of that now, I think.
Television is so huge that I can't always keep track of it, and I'm a big TV person. Like, I've loved television forever, but there are just so many things, and I watch, a great, I mean, I wouldn't say a great deal, a decent deal of them, and it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
Which, on the one hand, I kind of love, because, again, it's the same thing, right? It's like, if you really want something to go through, you can probably figure out a way, somehow, some way to do it. But at the same time, it's like, I can only watch so many things, you know?
You can't,
and it's not like film where it's like, okay, this is 2 hours, this is an hour and a half. It's like, this is 10 hours, 13 hours.
Right. This is a series. I'm
Absolutely.
Gonna binge watch like 12 seasons of Frasier, by which I love. But I mean, like sitting down and watching a movie.
Right.
There's a beginning, middle. It's intimate. It's more intimate.
It's almost like you have a contract. It's like, okay, we're going to start this time, we're going to end this time, and then you can do what you need to do. And with a television show, obviously, it can kind of go anywhere.
They keep stringing you along.
That's right. That's right.
They're like, but what about this? I want my characters to have an ending. Yeah, it's kind of it, and that's why I love movies, because after what I love.
That would be the argument for me for movies. Yes.
Yeah. The post-movie conversation is my favorite conversation.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
You go see an old French film, and you're sitting there and you go, why did they shot the way they shot that? How did they? That's great. But what the fuck were they talking about?
What happened? What were they doing? Why were they sitting there looking at each other? What? Why?
But,
absolutely. But it's a great point that you make there too, because that's how we connect as humans. And that's how we kind of see the mirror reflected to us, and that's how we, and the loss of going out to the movies or going places or watching things with other people. As much as I love to binge watch things on my own, it can get a little isolating.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit like, oh, and nobody knows about this weird movie I just watched. And I guess nobody ever will.
No one's feeling what I'm feeling. I can't talk about it. Yeah.
No, absolutely.
I can post about it on a thing. I saw this weird movie, and it was like, what do you want? What do you?
It's true.
But going to the movies is a sense of community.
It is.
And
there is.
I don't ever want it to go away. I think it shouldn't.
And that's what we're trying to do here. So thank you for being my second guest, but really my first real guest, because my husband counts, but and I hope we can do this again soon. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Eric.
You got it.
All right. Thank you so much for listening to the second episode of the Some Say podcast. I'm Holly. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Eric Terzo. I sure did. I thought he was really a lot of fun to speak to. If you or someone you think would be a great guest, someone who'd love to talk about what they create and why they create it, email me. Email me at somesaypodcast@gmail.com. Always, for any information on the show, go to the website, hollyameaton.wixsite.com/somesay. Right now, I'm currently able to post to SoundCloud, iTunes, and YouTube. And of course, we always have links on our website. So I'm looking forward to next week. I had a great conversation with Joya Bradley, who is a director and person who wears many hats. So I'm looking forward to it. I hope you can join us again next time. And I've got to go now, but talk to you soon.